Dear kids, today we're going to tell a story called The Donkey Who Betrayed His Friends. There was a great donkey named Ben, a deer named Bella, a little monkey named Tommy, and a rabbit named Ruby. They played together and shared delicious food every day, living a happy life. However, one day, due to momentary greed, Ben made a wrong choice and betrayed his friends. Let's prick up our ears and listen to this story full of lessons. In a valley surrounded by green mountains, there lived a group of loving and harmonious little animals. The gray donkey Ben, the deer Bella, the little monkey Tommy, and the rabbit Ruby were the best of friends. Every morning, when the first ray of sunlight fell on the stream, turning the water golden, they would gather on time. Bella would always gracefully raise her head, and with a gentle sway of her antlers, the tender leaves at the very top, glistening with dewdrops, would flutter down. "Catch! These are the freshest today," Bella would shout merrily. And Ben, Tommy, and Ruby would rush over excitedly, scrambling to taste them. Tommy would scurry back and forth among the nearby branches. Suddenly, he'd do a handstand hanging upside down, making everyone shriek in surprise. Then, he'd land steadily and proudly make a face at his friends, making them burst into laughter. And Ruby would always mysteriously pull out a carrot from behind her back. "Look, the super big carrot I found. Let's share it together." Then the four little friends would sit on the grass by the stream, enjoying the food while sharing the interesting things they had discovered. Although Ben was always clumsy, he had the warmest smile and the broadest back. Every time they crossed the river, he would crouch down, let his little friends climb onto his back one by one, and then stand up carefully and wade through the stream slowly. "Hold on tight. Don't fall off," Ben would always remind them, and the little friends on his back would cheer happily, feeling the pleasant breeze on their faces. Until one day, the sound of unfamiliar horse hooves broke the tranquility of the valley. A human caravan passed by. The leader of the caravan was a burly man with a thick beard. His eyes were sharp, and he immediately took a fancy to Ben's strong build. The burly man squatted down and patted Ben's neck with his rough big hand, his voice deep and full of temptation. "Hey, little guy, come with me. I'll feed you the sweetest corn and soft hay every day. It's much better than gnawing on wild vegetables here." Ben's nose twitched, and his throat couldn't help but make a gurgle sound as he swallowed. "But my friends," Ben hesitated and looked back at his friends who were playing by the stream. At that moment, Bella was gracefully flicking her antlers. Tommy was performing a newly learned difficult move on the branch, and Ruby was clapping merrily beside him. The bearded merchant seemed to see through Ben's thoughts. He took out a handful of shiny copper coins from his pocket and waved them in front of Ben, making a clear jingle sound. "All these are yours, as long as you tell me where to find the fattest prey." Ben's eyes stared straight at the copper coins, as if he could already taste the sweetness of the corn. But just then, Bella's voice came clearly. "Ben, let's go to the top of the mountain to watch the sunrise later. I heard the scenery there is amazing." Ben's heart was in a fierce struggle. On one side were the tempting food and wealth, and on the other side were his good friends, whom he had been with day and night. His four hooves uneasily pawed at the ground, and he lowered his head. On the slope over there, there are always deer herds drinking water every evening. Ben's voice got softer and softer until it was only audible to himself. But the jingle of the copper coins in his ears grew louder and louder, as if there was a little devil constantly tempting him. That night, the roar of a hunting rifle echoed in the valley. The sound was like a bolt from the blue, piercing the quiet night sky. Ben hid in the corner, afraid to see what was happening outside. It was not until everything was quiet that he secretly stuck his head out. But what he saw broke his heart. Bella's antler was hung outside the caravan's tent, and the blood stained the stones by the stream red. Under the moonlight, it was especially dazzling. Tears welled up in Ben's eyes. He wanted to rush over and apologize to Bella, but he was afraid of the merchant's punishment, so he could only turn around silently and follow the caravan out of the valley. From then on, Ben lived in the merchant's stable. Although there was sweet corn and soft hay every day, these foods tasted like sawdust in his mouth without any flavor. Lying on the haystack, Ben felt uncomfortable all over. The hay seemed to turn into thorns, pricking his heart. When it was quiet, only his sighs echoed in the stable. He would always think of the ticklish feeling when Tommy scratched his belly, the warmth when Ruby stuffed the tenderest carrot to him, and the happy times with his friends. But every time he wanted to gather the courage to return to the valley and apologize to his friends, the pain of the merchant's whip on his body and the increasing number of copper coins in his pocket made him swallow the apology that was on the tip of his tongue again and again. Just wait a bit longer. When I've saved enough money, I'll go back and make up for them. Ben always comforted himself like this, but he knew in his heart that some things couldn't be compensated for with money. Days passed like this until one stormy night, the caravan's carriage got stuck in the mud. The merchant was in a panic and grabbed Ben's reins viciously, shouting angrily, "Go and lure those stupid rabbits over. Their fur and fetch a good price." Ben looked at the faint light coming from the rabbit hole in the distance. The rain mixed with his tears and slid into his mouth, tasting salty. His heart was filled with pain and confusion. He didn't want to hurt his friends anymore, but he was also afraid of the merchant's punishment. Just then, he suddenly heard a familiar neigh. It was Bella. It turned out that the deer herd hadn't been completely wiped out. Bella, who had lost one antler, was leading her companions quietly approaching. Ben's eyes lit up instantly, and a long-lost courage welled up in his heart. "I'm sorry." Ben used all his strength, suddenly broke free from the reins, and blocked the caravan's way with his huge body. The merchant flew into a rage, and the whip lashed down on his back like raindrops, but Ben stood firmly on the spot, letting the pain spread through his body. Bella saw Ben's action. A flash of surprise crossed her eyes, and then she firmly led the deer herd charging forward. Her antlers overturned the carriage. Tommy nimbly threw a beehive from the tree, and the bees swarmed out, chasing the merchants everywhere. Ruby led the rabbits to block the caravan's retreat with stones. In an instant, the caravan was in chaos. When the first ray of sunlight pierced through the clouds, the merchant slunk away, and the valley returned to peace. Ben lowered his head, not daring to look into his friend's eyes. His body trembled slightly with pain, and his heart was filled with guilt. "We know you regret it," Bella gently rubbed Ben's face with her intact antler. Her tone was both forgiving and a little helpless. But betrayal is like a broken pottery pot. Even if it's glued back together, there will still be cracks. From that day on, Ben lived alone on the edge of the valley. He silently used his strength to help everyone carry food and cultivate the fields. Whenever a little animal needed help, he would always be the first to rush forward, hoping to make up for the mistakes he had made. Spring turned to autumn, and Ben had many marks of hard work on his body, but he never complained. Finally, one day, Tommy climbed onto his back again as he used to. Come on, let's go to the top of the mountain to watch the sunrise. Ben's eyes instantly welled up with tears. He knew that although the past cracks couldn't be completely erased, as long as he truly repented, the seeds of friendship could still sprout and grow again. Dear kids, the story ends here. Through this story, we've learned a very important truth. True friendship is extremely precious, and betraying friends will bring deep hurt. Because of his momentary greed, Ben made a wrong choice, lost his friends, trust, and his heart was filled with guilt and pain. I hope you can also learn from this story that no matter what difficulties you encounter, you should cherish the friendship around you and not be misled by short-term benefits. If you make a mistake, be brave enough to admit it and correct it. And only then can you truly win others' respect and trust. Finally, Teacher Becky hopes you will subscribe to my channel so that I can share nice bedtime stories with you every day. Good night and have sweet dreams.